give you hope today, living hope, through our next guest. Diane Carbonell loved to make rich desserts for
child and teenager, but by the time she went to college, Diane says she was unable to control her eating habits. When Diane married, she weighed 165 pounds. Soon she began hiding food in her closet and stashing treats in her desk. 12 years later, she tipped the scales at 300 pounds and couldn't get a tape measure around her hips. In her book, 150 Pounds Gone Forever, Diane shares how she came face to face with her obesity and offers a positive plan for a healthier lifestyle.
She has an amazing story. Please welcome to the 700 Club, Diane Carbonell. It's great to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
You have the proof to show that you were actually twice the size that you are today. You've brought some clothes with us. Show us what you wore when you were at the peak of your weight.
I would be happy to. I'm going to stand up so you can get the full effect.
Wow,
Diane. This is a shirt I made because I had outgrown clothes in the store. So I made it to look like a tablecloth. I'm not exactly sure. But this fit and it was tight.
Unbelievable.
And this is a shirt that I wore under any jumper that I had made, regardless of really whether it matched or not and how old and faded it got. This is a size 3X, and I actually outgrew this size.
Unbelievable. Yeah. You know, you didn't always have a weight problem. I mean, as I was reading your book, pictures of you when you were young, you were thin and beautiful. And what happened that started the weight gain in your life?
What happened to me, I think happens to a lot of people when they get married. I didn't really have the freshman 15. Instead, I had the newlywed 50, is kind of what I call it. So I started to gain weight those first couple of years of my marriage. And then when I got pregnant with my first child, I gained 75 pounds.
Now, at that time, as I was reading, you were actually in your marriage hiding food in a closet. Tell me about what was going through your mind, and how did you see that as abnormal, or what were you thinking?
I kind of started that behavior when I was in high school.
In high school? You
know, I would go through the drive-thru or to the convenience store and buy some M&Ms or candy bars, and I didn't want my parents to see that, so I would just go stick it in my closet. And sometimes after I got married, I would occasionally do that again. And I think it was just that, trying to not be able to acknowledge what was going on.
So what do you think, when you were a teenager, would your parents have been very disapproving because you bought candy, or what?
I think so, in some ways. They were good parents in a lot of ways, but they were a little on the controlling side. And so I think that was one way that I felt like I could be in control of something. So once I got my driver's license, then I started to eat food that they didn't know about.
So here you are, you're married now, you're pregnant, you've gained this weight. What are you feeling and thinking at that point?
I'm feeling like in the first pregnancy, when I gained all that weight, I honestly thought it would just come off.
So did I.
Yeah. But, you know, it seemed to come off for my friends, and surely it would come off for me, but it didn't come off. And then I just continued to gain weight after that pregnancy. And then in between that one and the second pregnancy, and between the second pregnancy and the third pregnancy, I kept putting on weight.
At the peak of your weight gain, what were some of the things that impacted your life because of that? What were some of the things? You had some embarrassing moments of things that happened. Talk about that.
I really did. Gaining that much weight really impacted my life in 3 areas. Physically, it was hard to walk. It was hard to get up off the couch, and so I spent a lot of time sitting, which of course was exactly the opposite of what I should do. It impacted my life spiritually. You know, I really felt like I was failing God because I couldn't control that. And it also affected it socially, you know, with my friends and doing things with my children, so that was hard.
Well, and emotionally and psychologically too. You know, sometimes you get to a place where you've dug a rut that's so deep for yourself, you don't even know how to climb out of it. At that point, were you depressed? What were you feeling?
Internally, I was definitely depressed, and that definitely made me eat more. It was funny because as I told my husband later how I felt, he said, I never knew that you felt like that.
So
I never shared it.
All of that.
I did.
So then food became a comfort.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You gained Weight Watcher, you joined Weight Watchers 82 times And it never stuck for you.
It never did, and the reason is because I never did it.
Yeah, that would have that would have an impact.
I never did it right.
Yeah.
You know, I would lose a little bit, and then I would think, oh, I've got this, and I would quit.
Yeah.
And then I would go back
again. Kind of like
again.
sabotaging
Yes.
your own victories.
Absolutely. I go to the meetings and then go to McDonald's.
Yeah.
So that didn't really work.
So what was the thing that finally grabbed hold of you and said, need some lifestyle change here?
I was standing on my doctor's scale, which I always hated to do anyway, and I remember seeing that number and I thought, where is this going to stop? Mm-hmm. Am I going to be 350 or 400 pounds? Am I going to be able to get out of my house or be there for these kids? Yes. So that was the turning point for me. I was like, I've got to do something.
And what did you do that was different?
What was different for me is I didn't diet counting calories or counting points or fat grams. I just did 3 things. I wanted to do something that I could do while I lost weight, and then after I maintained it, it wouldn't be this big shift. Mm-hmm. So I just watched my portions really carefully. I watched the percentage of fat in food, and I got off the couch and started to exercise.
What did you do? Because when you're 300 pounds, you can't just get off the couch and start exercising. No. What did you do?
I wore my jumper with these ugly clothes, and I walked for 5 minutes. And that was a big accomplishment for me then, because I had never done that in years, 10 years of being morbidly obese.
Now, what do you think it was that kept you from sabotaging the victories that you started to have in that? That same old pattern that had repeated itself. Why do you think suddenly you were successful?
I think the difference that time was I did it for me, and I did it on the basis of really with my faith. You know, instead of trying to always do it on my own, I really took some time to analyze how I felt about my faith and, you know, really relying on God's strength during that time. And one thing I always recommend to people, as you start to see some victories, write those down. Yes. So when you're tempted to sabotage yourself or you're tempted to go back to those old habits, remember, I don't have to wear this clothing item anymore. You know?
Here's the amazing thing to me about your story is you had 3 more pregnancies after you lost, right?
I actually had 4.
4? Were you terrified the first time you got pregnant? I mean, pregnancy just involves weight gain. There's no getting around it. Here you've spent all this time, you've gone to all this effort, you've been successful, and you're going to have a baby and gain weight again.
It was a little disconcerting, that first pregnancy.
I was nicely put.
Because I thought, oh my gosh, what if I gain 75 pounds again or 50 pounds? But I just was very careful to do the things that I knew I should have done those first 3 pregnancies. Yes. And I didn't gain a lot of weight with that 4th pregnancy.
Unbelievable. There is your beautiful family today. Diane's weight loss program, I want to mention, is called Fit to the Finish. And this is a program well worth reading about, as well as her story, which is incredibly encouraging. It's in her new book called 150 Pounds Gone Forever. You need to get a hold of this. It's available where books are sold. If you'd like to know more about her story, go to cbn.com. And just a great encouragement, Diane, to folks who are really struggling with weight. And as we said earlier in our program, there are lots of them. So thank you so much for coming and being with us. You look fabulous.
You're welcome. Thank you.